They wanted me to look and act like her and restricted me from being myself. At an age where one struggles to find themselves, I was not even given the luxury of doing that. I was expected to follow a certain personality and style, and anything more or less than that was unacceptable. Growing up as the neglected child who stayed in her sister's shadow for the longest time, all I craved was my parents' attention and praise. The slightest mention of positive feedback from them used to make my day. Pathetic, I know, but it was everything to me at some point. My sister made things worse. She was my bully and a good one at that. When I completed high school as valedictorian, my parents didn't attend my graduation since my sister was hosting a party at our summer house with her friends. They gave me several excuses, saying high school graduation wasn't that big of a deal. It was the breaking point for me. I knew I had to get away from them to live freely, so I opted for the college furthest from my home. I enjoyed my college life and studied my favorite subject, English, which wasn't acceptable to my parents. I learned to ignore them and live my life the way I wanted. There, I met a guy and fell in love. He saw me for who I was and not for my family or my sister. Usually, people only got closer to me just to get my sister's information, so the friends I had weren't even friends. In college, I got to learn the value of friendships, love, life, and everything in between. When I graduated with my friends and boyfriend, I didn't bother calling my family since I knew they would cook up another excuse to miss it. I got a job and moved in with my boyfriend. All that while, whenever my parents called me, the news about my sister was the only thing I heard from them. They never cared to ask anything about me, and I never had the energy to tell them about me. After a few years, my boyfriend and I got engaged and were set to marry later that year. I broke the news to my family, who surprisingly showed interest in the marriage. However, they were disappointed when they found out that my fiancé was from a normal middle-class family rather than a rich one. They wanted me to find someone like my sister did and get married into a socially high family. I was speechless at their suggestion but chose not to reply to it. My sister was the last one to know about my wedding, and she never held back from expressing her distaste towards me and my fiancé. She always spoke to me like I was the dirt beneath her shoes, but I had gotten used to it and was numb to her reactions. The wedding was planned with the help of my friends and my in-laws. My in-laws were the parents I never had. They treated me like their own and loved me endlessly, which made me cry more than once. I gravitated towards them whenever I needed parental support and love. They knew that I struggled with my parents and sister and always reassured me that they would always be there for me in the end. My parents weren't satisfied with how we planned my wedding. It was a simple, small wedding meant to hold just my close friends and family. Both I and my fiancé wanted a minimalistic wedding that could emphasize and represent our love and bond. My parents wanted me to change the details to fit a bigger crowd and extravagant decorations. I was annoyed at their last-minute suggestions and asked them to let the day be about me. It was evident that my sister was having a hard time accepting the fact that my wedding day was going to be centered around me. She made sure that I was discouraged by her every time we met. On my wedding day, my parents called me in the morning and said that they wouldn't attend my wedding since my sister was throwing a party for her 7-year-old kid. They talked in such a way that I was naturally expected to understand their situation. I was getting married, for God's sake. I broke down in tears when I realized that I would never be important in their lives, and it pained me to accept the hard truth. My in-laws rushed to my side and calmed me down. My fiancé was furious when he heard about my parents not attending and even asked me if I wanted to postpone the wedding. After a few minutes to myself, I asked them to continue the ceremony. The wedding hall currently held the most important people in my life, and if my parents weren't inside the hall, it depicted their place in my life. The wedding went by smoothly. It was so beautiful and everything my husband and I had dreamed of. I noticed missed calls and texts from my parents updating me about the party my sister hosted, not even congratulations. I decided that it was time I cut them off from my life. I called them then and there and told them that they were no longer part of my life. They were livid, and before I heard their replies, I hung up and blocked their contacts. I was so mad. Almost a week later, they came to our apartment and demanded an explanation for cutting them off from my life. I stated how they never cared for me or my achievements and how I was ignored all my life compared to my sister. They gave the typical answer that they did all that because they loved me. I scoffed. The truth was never appealing, but I had learned to accept it.